What's going on, people? Welcome to the match preview as we face Forest after that fantastic 1-0 win over Man United. But there's twists and turns going into this game. Are we walking into an injury crisis with reports of Eze potentially being out injured? We'll be discussing that and more. As always, we want you involved, so let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe. We're very close to 4,000. Share it to a friend as well. Let's reach 4,000 subscribers. And yeah, I'm joined by AJ today. AJ, how you feeling after the United game? Because I'll be honest, I was looking forward to this game, but after hearing these injury news pre-game, it's like, what's going on here? What's going on here? But how you feeling?
Yeah, man, roller coaster of emotions. Essentially, I think the Man United win gassed me. Like, I was very, very proud, very, very excited, and I think we essentially did the best we could with what we had. However, yeah, the news that's broken out today, and with the long list of injuries we've got in the team, it's kind of putting a dampener on it, man. It's just made it a bit of a dampener. Let's just see how it plays out, because fair play to Roy, man. He is very good at getting the best out of what he has with what he's got, and fair play to him, man.
They might need to step on a bit soon if it continues like this, because we're running out. We're falling like dominoes right now, bro. Like every other game, every other training session, there's another player gone down. And of course, if you haven't heard of the news yet, it is on Eze. Eze is reportedly set to be out for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. So if that is true, then we're talking about, of course, 100% missing a Forest game. Then you got the international break. Of course, that's fantastic for us. I guess, there's no games in between there for like 2 weeks. But Newcastle, he'll be missing out, and some other key games as well. Look, AJ, what is it? What is going on at Palace? Like, why are we picking up so many injuries, do you think? Is it a training issue? Is it recruitment? There's other clubs as well that's picking up injuries. What do you think it is? Are we overplaying these players?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, right, you've got the factor in, we're only playing, in theory, 1 game a week. I know, we've had the Carling Cup the Carabao Cup even, but apart from that, we haven't been playing like every 2-3 days. It's almost been a game a week. And as a professional athlete, that should be the norm to you. Our injury crisis is crazy. I don't know if it's something in training. Maybe, the players are getting a little bit too overworked. It's very hard to tell. It could be bad luck. There's no, it does exist, and we're not exactly a club or a team that's renowned for having large injury crisis. I mean, this is the biggest injury crisis I've ever seen in our squad, probably for a very long time, possibly ever.
Yeah, we got. And I think 7 first-team players.
Yeah, that's what makes it harder and tougher, because we've started the season without a lot of key players, and then as this progressed on, we've got results, and we've just been losing a man almost weekly at this point. And it will get to the point where that will stagnate and start to kind of really take its toll on certain players. But then I'd even argue or debate, is it because players have had to overperform in the absence of those first-team players that's potentially led to us having this injury crisis? So because there are some games that I've seen Eze come out of, and I'm like, bro, this guy's been worked and kicked about a lot. So you don't know.
So what do you think it is? Do you think it's bad luck? I don't think it's bad luck. I'll be honest. There's an injury crisis going on in the Premier League, and that is interesting as well. Whether it's just a build-up of players just being fatigued from the past. Then again, they had a bit of a break in the summer, so I don't really get why they would start getting injured now. But it can't be bad luck, AJ. It can't be. You can't have this many injuries, bad luck-wise. It's similar injuries as well. With Eze, we're hearing his hamstring. With Edward, I heard that it was like something to do with hamstring related as well. The positive is the reports are suggesting that he should be back for the Forest game. So hopefully that is true at least. But do you actually think it's bad luck? Or
I think it is circumstantial. Like, have we... I'm trying... Like, nobody's changed anything in the physio room. There hasn't, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure if there was something a bit dodgy going on in training, we would have been aware of that by now. And it's not to say, what you got to remember is we've had Hodgson and Loughton beforehand. And, we've never had anything quite like this before. And these are young players as well. It's not to say they're old and aging players, they're young players as well. So I think it's circumstantial. I think it's just horrific timing. And I think that could be the case across the Premier League. I can't speak for every other football club because I'm not watching every football club like that. I wasn't even sure or knew that was an issue in terms of the whole of the Premier League, but nobody's particularly getting overworked. I mean, it could potentially be a result of maybe a heavy schedule around the preseason because it's like traveling, training, kicking ball, traveling, training, kicking ball. Maybe it's taking a toll on the players because remember, in the summer for a lot of these players, they are all over the world, constantly training, putting in the work, and
that's not just this summer.
But it's more common nowadays. It's more common nowadays. Yes, you are right. It happened, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been more common, and you can get a bang average Premier League tour in Australia or New Zealand or North Asia, whatever it may be. But I don't know. I don't really have an answer. It's so hard and just so unfortunate. It just feels like maybe it's just me, or maybe because it's my football club. But I feel like we've definitely got the worst of it.
Yeah, well, it feels like anyways. And by the way, that lot of neutrals don't even talk about us in that sense. They don't look into us. I mean, even when we beat Man United, we still had key players missing, very important players. Lerma, Elise, missing in the game. So it's been happening since the start of the season. But for me, as I said, I don't think it's bad luck, people. I don't think that. Maybe you do let us know in the conversation down below. But then again, the bit that gets confusing for me is when Hodgson joined. I think it was Matt Woosnam who listed the change in approach to training. And I remember looking at the schedule, and that schedule looked much more less damning on the player than the Vieira schedule. So the training is not as hectic under Hodgson to what I believe. So if it ain't the training, if it ain't bad luck, then what is it? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the conversation down below. Let's talk about the real issue going into this game then. Ebbs, out for 6 weeks. Who replaces him, AJ?
I've been doing some thinking about this, and I think it might have to be Ahamada. Subject to him being fit. Yeah. Subject to him being fit. Ahamada is the one that rings a bell to me because he's the nearest player in the team that I would say could slot into that number 10 creative role. But then obviously, has he even started a game for us in the Premier League? I don't believe he has. So that's asking a lot of him to then all of a sudden be coming in. I know it's Nottingham Forest. It's not particularly a Big Six club, but this is what squads are for. And I know, we may address that in a bit. Momentarily in terms of the squad building, but maybe it just goes to show the squad building wasn't strong enough in the summer, and we've left ourselves a little bit high and dry there. But I think Ahamada's the one for me that stands out because if I'm looking at the squad on paper, who sits in that number 10 role the best? Who plays in that number 10 role the best?
But he's out injured. We don't know. But right now,
there you go.
Hamada, but if he's out injured, then who is it? Because we're talking
it might have to be.
I would like, but they're not available.
All right. But then you look at the squad and then you have to have that horrible conversation. Who is the nearest player to a number 10 that is, what's the term, capable of doing that?
You're talking, I don't know where the light has gone. But yeah.
Well, shout out to Dee. Having an energy crisis. Cost of living crisis, people. The cost of living crisis is real. It's even affecting the back of the Nest stream.
My cable must have touched my light by accident and turned off. But even my light ain't 100% fit. Like everyone.
Oh, mate. You're really worse. I come from watching a horror film yesterday, so boy, Dee, it's not looking promising, mate. It's not looking promising for you. Panic. But
so
it might have to be Schlupp, It might have to be Schlupp that goes in there.
But AJ, let me listen to the bench because Schlupp was starting. It has to be someone who hasn't started. So I'll go through the bench. There was Rob Holding against United, Nathaniel Klein, Malcolm Mbiwe, Chris Richards, Remy Matthews, Jairo Riedewald, Raksaki, David Ozo, and Ola Adebomi as well. So in terms of those players, it has to be one of them, right? Because you're saying then if Schlupp goes through the middle, then who goes out wide? You have to bring someone in. So out of those players that I've listed, who do you think it is? Because Jairo's been coming off the bench and he's looked solid, but he's not number 10. Maybe Roy could give Jairo a start because he's been ready to.
Then we have to change the formation. So a couple thoughts I've had is if Edouard's fit, you go 2 up top. You just have to do that. That could be one option, and then you play 4 in midfield, essentially a 4-4-2. We've seen that in second halves of games, and that's obviously been fruitious and productive. Obviously, with a bit less creativity on the pitch, but at the end of the day, it's still a solid enough formation for us to create enough opportunities. Or you just play one up front, and then you have to, you're right, go free in midfield. So then essentially what you have to then do is take the number 10 element out of it, which creates less, well, which basically makes it less creativity, and then you almost got three generic centre midfielders. So that'd be Hughes, Decore, and then I guess potentially Gyro would have to go in there.
Or it might be Edward, and this is the point I'm coming towards. If Edward is fit based on reports to start this game, then I think personally it will be Edward as number 10 or Jeffrey Schlupp. But I think Edward just comes into the side. I think that will be the case. But that's a big if. That's a big if. And if he ain't fit, then I think it'll be Gyro. I do think it'll be Gyro. I just don't see Ozo or the likes of Jez getting an opportunity in this game. So yeah, I think it'll be one of them two. But I guess it depends on who's fit. If it's fit, I think it has to be Edward. But let us know who you would like to be starting ahead of Eze. End of the day, AJ, regardless of if it's Edward, Jez, or whoever player, Gyro, we've lost some massive creativity. And I said it going into the season, there isn't that many creative options. There is some very good ones. Elise, of course, when he's fit, Francois should be exciting. Eze should be as well. But in terms of creative options, you just disappeared and I came back. So we're having an injury crisis on the stream. I don't know if you saw me, but yeah, in terms of injury options, Francois, Eze, Elise, like we're lacking creativity, and I've said this as well. I think it goes down to recruitment. When you look at the recruitment, we had to bring in another forward. We didn't do it, and now we're in this position. We're talking about whether Gyro should be starting as like a number 10. He's not number 10, but hopefully he could do the job. Or Jeffrey Schlupp might be a number 10.
Well, maybe we might have to do a bit of digging around and see if we can get a number for Townsend. And I hear Balassi's available as well, man. We might have to go a bit dire here, man.
Game by game contract. Just quickly, AJ. So based on these injuries that we've been talking about and Eze not being available for this game, do you think a point would be enough? Does the expectation now change going into this game, or are you still the same?
I would happily take a point. A win would be beautiful, and it would definitely get us on the right track before the next international break. But based on the circumstances and what we're dealing with right now, take the point. I'd actually rip your arm off for a point.
Rip your arm off for a point at home to Forest. And
yeah, but what you guys,
when you're at home,
like,
you're looking at rip your arm off. We're gonna this is a bit over the top, nah?
Nah, do you know what it is, right? I hear your point, right, and I see where you're coming at, and
Man City, let's say, not Man United. I gave two very
but at the end of the day, we'll get into Nottingham Forest and their threats and score predictions momentarily as well. But what you got to look at is they're not bums. They're not a poor team. Like on paper, and actually what you physically see in terms of what you've got. Remember, with the way that the team is now and the team is structured, there is going to be a lot of emphasis on what the defense can do. Like, unfortunately, our defense is going to get worked on Saturday because Nottingham Forest's attackers are fast, powerful, and creative. Our attackers aren't, in comparison. So the funniest thing about it is the one thing that is great about our team is the injury crisis is in our defense. So we're going to have to rely on their experience and their excellence to get us through this game. And then the one or two potential opportunities, that's where we're going to have to utilize it. Do I think we could snatch a win? Yes. And I know the boys will back him. I'll be there backing him. I know you'll be there backing him as well. But you have to, I think logic has to kind of kick in a little bit here. And I think even Hodgson himself will do a bit of heritage, vintage Roybal. I can imagine.
Yeah, look, for me, going into this game, I said it, if we want to achieve something special, we have to win this game. But as you mentioned, if we're looking at Eze being now injured, who is the next creative outlet? Who have we got that can step up? We're listing players such as Jared Riedewald, who is not a number 10, or Jeffrey Schlupp going as a number 10, and potentially Edward coming into the side, who's still not a number 10. So we don't.
And then remember, not even 100% fit either. We don't know what kind of, he might be only be able to capable of doing an hour or less.
So So we got Jordan Ayew, who's been the creative outlet so far in terms of assists. There's going to be heavy reliance on him. And apart from that, there isn't anyone that could be creative. And I think it falls down to recruitment. But unfortunately, it has to alter my expectations. So that's why I do think a draw would be okay, I guess. It would be okay. But the one thing that we can't do, regardless of injuries or not, is lose this game. We simply cannot lose this game. But maybe going into this game now, I wouldn't agree with you in terms of biting your hand off for a point. I think it's not that bad. There are still some players in this team, but I do agree with you. I think a draw overall would be a positive result, which we'll talk about score prediction and we'll end up seeing how we see this game going. But yeah, that's how I feel about the game. But let's quickly look at the league table as we normally do, and it's very good to look at the league table after a win, of course, against Man United away from home. So pre-game week 8, as it stands right now, you can see that Palace are sitting 9th in the table with 11 points. If we was to win this game, nothing really changes from going into the United game. If we win this game, we could go up to 7th, which was the same pre-United. If we draw, 8th, same pre-United. The only difference is if we was to lose, the lowest we can go is, of course, only 13th, not 14th. So that's the only thing that changed. But AJ, now we're going into these, the 10-game mark, which I think is important to see where we're at. Are you impressed, considering all these injuries that we've been talking about, that we're in this position talking about 7th, 8th, and even dropping down to 13th with a loss against Forest?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I'm actually very happy with the return which we've got in terms of how everything's played out. I think Roy's done a brilliant job. And, my invisible hat does go off to him because he's had a lot of BS to basically deal with, to be fair. And a lot of it has not been his fault. And I think not just in the way he conducts himself as a gentleman, but I think the way that he's embraced and done the fan statements and he's really, asked the fans to get behind the squad and get behind the team. There's something about that I just love and respect about the man. And you know what? The man's got the key and freedom of Croydon for a reason. And I think even with the players that have been in the squad and, what they've had to contend with and deal with, they've taken on extra workloads. They've gone above and beyond. And naturally, as time progresses, sort of to the winter period, the only thing we can hope is that guys integrate themselves back into the squad, and then we can potentially push on and do some amazing things this season. The season's still young. And if you had said to me, you know what, you'd be 9th in the table after the first 9 games, I would have been happy with it. I probably wouldn't have even believed you. So, if this is what we're capable of doing in terms of the absences we've got in the first team, imagine what we're going to do when we start having our creative players back in the squad and then it all comes together.
That's what I was thinking against Man United. Literally watching that game, I was thinking, all right, cool. Defensively, we're solid as it is. But imagine when we bring in Elise into this side, or France as an option coming off the bench, for example, as well as Eze. We know Eze and Elise, they've got brilliant connection together in terms of assists and goals. Imagine when you bring them players into the side, as well as Edward, who's been scoring goals. Lerma, for example, into the side as well. That means who's is coming off the bench. That's a very good option off the bench, as we saw. Like, we will naturally improve, but now it's getting worse. It's the injury situation getting worse. That's why if we can somehow pull a win, that would be absolutely massive. And then international break, reassess. Hopefully we get Elise back and a few other players back, such as Lerma as well, and then go again after international break. This game is massive in that sense that we need to get something out of it. Hopefully a win, but that's going to be very hard. But talking about Forest in terms of their most recent results, they drew 1-0 against Brentford, lost 2-0 to City. They've only got 1 win in 5. Drew 1-0 to Burnley as well. Only beat Chelsea 1-0, which is a solid result regardless of how Chelsea have been performing so far this season. And lost 3-2 to United. Have you been surprised by just 1 win in 5? I'll be honest. Some games they could have won, and they should have. Maybe Burnley. They were fortunate to get a draw as well because they could have went either way as well. Burnley could have won that game, which I was surprised about. Brentford, they started the game well, but ended up getting a draw out of that. Of course, City, no one really expected them to get anything there. Chelsea was positive. What have you made of Forest?
If I was a Forest fan, I'd be a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. I think considering the money they spend,
right?
Exactly, but considering the money they've spent, and more importantly, the structure and how they work and how they do things, and even some of those names they put into that squad, I would have probably expected a better return. However, that doesn't mean that that it's lost on me that they don't have threats. I think they're almost like us in reverse. And what I mean by that is their front three is pretty devastating and beautiful in the eye. But then when you start going on to the defensive side of things, it can be got at. And I think it's shown in terms of their performances and their results, to be honest. I feel like they're defensively, they can be got at. That's why I'm quite frustrated and disappointed that that we don't have our attacking threats going forward, because I feel like this is potentially a game where we could pop a few goals against them. But at the same time, on the other end of the pitch, their attackers are pretty devastating. Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, and bless him, I can't pronounce his name, but the Tewu.
Awani. Yeah, Awani. He's physical. That's going to be interesting.
He's big, he's strong, he's going to be a nightmare. So, and he gets around the box, and he's always got an eye for goal. I do like him a lot. So, they got quality, man. They got quality. But it just doesn't seem to be quite clicking on the football pitch. And even last season, there was one or two times where it kind of looked like Steve Cooper might potentially lose his job because the form was very indifferent considering the players they got. And after the recruitment they've done in the summer, if they don't start picking up points, they might start getting a bit shaky again.
So yeah, I think it's going to. Rightly so, they'll be looking into this game, thinking about our injuries and saying that we should be getting a point. Do you get it? Like and rightly so. Like the expectation should be there for Forest as well, for both teams, that we should try and get results. I think Sangare is another player that I'm a bit worried about, especially how physical he is in midfield. But there's a few, Hudson-Odoi and Alanga. We cope with Man United defenders well so far. So I guess we'll see what happens in terms of our fullbacks. I think we should be able to handle them. We should on paper, but Hudson-Odoi, we'll see how old he is, because he's done very good against Man United, but sometimes it's hit and miss as well. Hopefully this is a game where he's still solid, because if he ain't, then Hudson-Odoi is one player that I'm worried about. Elanga versus Mitchell, I'm a bit more comfortable about that. But yeah, down the left-hand side, that's my main concerns. But let's talk about score prediction, the favorite part of the show, of course, where we see if we know ball. Of course, last week's results, I'll show them as well in terms of what happened. So I predicted a 1-0 against United. Of course, I get 0 points because I got the wrong outcome and a wrong result as well in terms of the prediction. We saw a prediction from you, AJ. You said 2-1 to United. So you doubted the boys. Yeah? You doubted them. We'll see what you say this week. Stan said 3-1 United. T said 2-0 United. So all you lot, put your head to shame, yeah? Put your head to shame. You had no faith. And that's what you get. We're all picking up 0 points. So nothing changes there. But yeah, look, I'm happy. I got it wrong because I was predicting a draw and we got a win. But let's look at the prediction table. Of course, there's nothing that's changed. So everyone's still on the same points. Me and T at the top with 4, AJ and Stan with 2. I just don't like it. I just don't like the fact that there's always a 4 and a 2. It seems like we've been stuck on 4 for a while. But let's talk about this week's predictions then, and let us know your predictions in the comment section down below. I'm going to go for 1-0. Before the injury news for Eze, I would have gone for Palace win, because I think we could have, beaten them, but I think it's going to be a struggle in terms of creativity. Hopefully I'm wrong once again, and hopefully we do get the win, but I'm going to go for 1-0. AJ, talk to me. How do you see this one going?
You stole my thunder. I think I'm going to go with a 1-1.
Okay, no, that's fine. It worked.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 1-1. I think that's a sensible option here. It's about time for me to start picking up points. I'm sitting a little bit too close to the bottom of the predictions. So let me be a bit smarter about this. I'm thinking 1-1.
If we're picking up points, then we're both picking up points. Same outcome, same score. So hopefully that means you'll go above Stan, because, well, it depends how it goes. But Stan predicted a win. He said 2-1 Palace. And T, who's not available as well today, has said 2-0 Palace. So there's twos. We're going to duo. So me and AJ is going with draws. Stan and T is going with wins. Now, no one's saying a loss. Hopefully, there isn't a loss. But if we was to lose, then no one pick up points. But we'll see how it goes. Right now, I mean, if we get a win, then T gets a massive, boost. Well, it depends on the correct score and outcome. But he can go on top of me on this weekend. And also, AJ, you won't be able to go above me because we're predicting the same results. But Stan could potentially,
give it time. I'm coming. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so correct score and outcome gives you 3 points, and of course, just the correct outcome only gives you a point. So if Stan is right and they get 2-1, then Stan will go above me. That's when things will get a bit tight, a bit worrying for my sake. But look, let us know your predictions in the comment section down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And yeah, just your general thoughts ahead of the game. Of course, the Eze news is a sucker, but here we are. We have to survive until the international break, which is right upon us. But thanks to every single one of you who's watched this. Take care, people, and until next time, up the palace.